There was still glitter on my sleeve from her dress. That's what I noticed first. Not the cold. Not the way the apartment echoed with silence when I unlocked the door. Not even the champagne stain on my collar that wasn't mine. No, it was the glitter. Tiny, silver specks catching the hallway light as I dropped my keys, walked straight past the kitchen, and sat on the edge of our bed like a ghost in my own home. She hadn't texted again. Just that one message, 5 minutes after I left her boss's rooftop party without a word. Please come back. No punctuation. No explanation. I stared at it the entire Uber ride home. The driver kept glancing at me in the rear view like he thought I might throw up, or cry, or both. I didn't either. I just gripped my phone like it might answer the questions spinning in my head. Why now? Why that moment? Why the sudden panic after 2 hours of acting like I didn't exist? Because that's what happened. She didn't see me. Not once. I could have been a waiter, or a lamp, or the view. And I stayed. God help me. I stayed, smiling, nodding, sipping flat soda, pretending like it was fine. Like I was fine. But I wasn't. I was unraveling in real time. You know that feeling when you're in a room full of people and you're still the loneliest one there? That was me. Except worse, because the one person who was supposed to make me feel seen was laughing 3 feet away with some tall guy in a navy suit who knew her middle name. He said it. I heard him. She didn't correct him. She smiled. She touched his chest when she laughed. And me? I was standing behind a decorative plant like some pathetic background extra in the life I thought we built together. So I left. Not dramatically. Not loudly. I just walked out the side entrance like a guy leaving a job interview he already knew he failed. She didn't follow. But she texted, "Please come back." And here I am, sitting in our bedroom, staring at my reflection in the black TV screen, wondering if she meant it, or just didn't want people to ask why her husband vanished. The silence is heavy now. I can't hear music. I can't hear her laugh. I can only hear that message playing in my head on repeat, like it's trying to convince me she still cares. But if she cared, why did I feel more like a stranger than a spouse? I didn't plan on being awake when she got back. I thought I'd just sit for a minute, maybe scroll through some Reddit threads until my chest stopped feeling like it was being squeezed from the inside out. But I guess my body had other plans. I just sat there in the dark, fully dressed, arms crossed, phone on the nightstand lighting up every few minutes with a notification I didn't care about. Not from her. Never from her. It was nearly midnight when I heard the key turn. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Just watched the bedroom door like it might burst open with a SWAT team, not my wife. When it finally creaked open, she appeared in the doorway, heels in one hand, purse in the other, mascara smudged like she'd either cried or danced too hard. Either option felt like an insult. "Gideon," she said softly, her voice laced with faux concern, the kind she uses when she pretends she didn't forget to pick me up after work or double-book date night. I didn't answer. She hesitated, then stepped in slowly. "Why'd you leave like that?" I tilted my head slightly, like I didn't understand the question. "You didn't even notice I left, Celeste." She flinched at the sound of her name. A crack in the perfect shell. I was mingling. "I didn't see you walk out," she said, like that made it better. "I thought you were talking to that guy from finance." Brandon, right?" "I don't know who Brandon is," I said. I was alone. The entire time. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Set her heels down slowly, carefully, like any sudden move might set something off. "Look," she tried again. "It was a party. I had to talk to people. That's kind of the point. That's not what this is about." She crossed her arms, defensive now. "Then what is it about?" "It's about you acting like I wasn't there. Like I was some Uber driver you brought upstairs to hold your coat and wait in the corner. That's not fair, isn't it?" I stood up finally, not to tower over her or make a scene. I'm not that guy. But because sitting felt too weak in that moment. Too small. And I'd already spent the whole night shrinking into myself. "I watched you," I continued, "with that guy in the suit. I don't know his name. Don't care. But I saw you laugh with him. Touch his arm. I saw him whisper in your ear, and you didn't pull away. You leaned in. Like you forgot you had a husband standing 10 feet away watching the whole thing." Silence. I waited. She didn't deny it. That was what made the air go cold. Her mouth opened again, but this time nothing came out. She looked away, first at the bed, then at the floor, then finally at the closet, like maybe there was an exit in there if she stared long enough. "You're making this into something it's not," she said at last. "No," I replied, quieter now. I think you're trying to turn it into something it wasn't. And I think you're scared I saw enough to know the difference. And for a moment, just one brief flicker, I saw something shift in her face. Not guilt, not regret, panic. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold, polished indifference she always wore when cornered. I texted you to come back, she said finally. Yeah, I nodded. But you didn't say why. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked past me, set her purse on the dresser, and started undressing like it was just another Thursday night. Like nothing had happened. And that told me everything I needed to know. She didn't ask why I hadn't changed clothes, why I was still wearing the same button-down shirt and stiff dress shoes I'd left the party in. She just crawled into bed like it was any other night, like I hadn't walked out of her life and slammed the door hard enough to wake the building. I stood there for a while, unsure of what to say next, or if saying anything even mattered. She rolled to her side, away from me, her back curving like a comma at the end of a sentence that didn't need finishing. Her breathing softened, slowed. Within minutes, she was asleep. And I just stood there. I used to love watching her sleep. In the early years, I'd lie awake sometimes just memorizing the way her lips twitched in dreams, or how her hand always searched for mine even when she was unconscious. But now she looked like a stranger who happened to know the Wi-Fi password. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone again. Not to scroll this time. Not to escape. I wanted to see the message again. The one that started all of this. That single text. Please come back. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even desperate. It was hollow. Like something you send when you're afraid of what people might say if you're caught alone. Not because you miss the person, but because you're afraid of how you'll look without them. I opened our chat history. Scrolled up. Weeks and weeks of brief logistics. Pick up milk. Meeting at 5, don't wait for me. Your mom called. She wants to do lunch. Nothing heartfelt. Nothing alive. Just two people co-managing a household. Two strangers in a shared Google Calendar. There was nothing in our history that warned me. No flashing lights. No signposts that said detour ahead. It all just faded. Quietly. Like a candle burning out in a room nobody's watching. I lay down next to her eventually. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know where else to go. And that's when I noticed something strange. She was talking in her sleep. Not full sentences. Just fragments. But clear enough. She mumbled a name. Kale. I froze. That wasn't a name I recognized. Not from her work. Not from her family. Not even from her overlong stories about her spin class or work brunches. And the way she said it, it wasn't casual. It was soft. Intimate. Like the way she used to say mine, back when I still felt like her safe place. Kale. She whispered again. And then something I couldn't fully catch, but I swear it ended with, he doesn't know. My entire body went numb. Not with rage. Not with sadness. With clarity. There it was. Truth in its most accidental form. I didn't shake her awake. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. I just lay there in the dark, eyes wide open, my heart hammering out a pattern I knew I'd never forget. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized I was completely, unmistakably alone. I didn't sleep at all after she murmured that name. I just lay there in the dark, eyes locked on the ceiling, feeling like the walls were slowly moving in on me. The glow from her phone lit up the nightstand a few times, but she never woke up to check it. Each vibration felt like a thunderclap in the silence. I kept replaying that name in my head, Kale, over and over. I whispered it under my breath to test how it felt on my tongue, to see if it would jog some memory, but it meant nothing to me. Nothing except danger. By the time the first gray light of morning crept into the room, I'd already made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not without proof. Not without seeing what I was up against. I was done being the wallpaper at her parties, the silent husband holding her purse. If she was living some double life, I needed to know who Kale was, not through her excuses, but with my own eyes. She left early, dressing in silence, pretending not to notice that I was awake. Big presentation, she muttered, like a schoolgirl reciting an excuse to a teacher. I nodded, feigned drowsiness, and let her go. The moment the door closed behind her, I was up, showered, dressed, out. My hands were shaking as I drove toward her office building, but I didn't even feel the steering wheel. It was like my body had switched to autopilot. Somewhere between the freeway exit and the downtown ramp, my nerves melted into a cold, flat kind of focus I didn't know I was capable of. I parked across from the sleek glass tower where she worked. I'd been there before, but only as a visitor, sitting in the lobby pretending not to notice how everyone looked at me like I didn't belong. This time I didn't go inside. I stayed in the car, hood up, coffee in hand, watching, waiting. Hours passed. My mind started spinning scenarios like a broken projector. Celeste laughing in some boardroom, whispering behind closed doors, leaning in the same way she did at that party. At some point I thought about just leaving, about going home and pretending it was all in my head. But then I saw him. He was nothing like I'd pictured. Kale. Or at least, the man she was walking out with matched the voice she'd whispered about in her sleep. Not the tall, polished executive I'd imagined. This guy was rougher. Black jacket, motorcycle helmet under one arm, smile like he'd been born with a secret he enjoyed keeping. And Celeste, my wife, was right next to him, clutching a folder like a prop while she tilted her head toward him in that exact same way she used to tilt it toward me when we first met. They didn't touch. Not yet. But the air between them had weight. You could feel it from across the street. I sank lower in the driver's seat, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. For a second, I thought she might see me. She didn't. She and Kale crossed the street, laughing at something I couldn't hear, and disappeared into the coffee shop on the corner. My fingers were trembling on my cup, coffee sloshing onto my jeans. This wasn't a rumor now. This wasn't a hunch. This was real. And I had to decide, right then, whether I was going to walk in there and blow it up or stay outside and learn everything I could. I stayed. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something sharper than sadness. I felt the edge of my own anger. Not the loud, messy kind you see in movies. The quiet, deliberate kind that builds like a storm offshore. The kind that changes a man. They stayed in that coffee shop for 42 minutes. I know because I timed it. I watched them through the window the entire time like some washed-up PI with a vendetta and no license. They sat by the window, not touching, but laughing in that kind of soft, slow rhythm that comes from history, not small talk. She touched her necklace a lot, a nervous tick I hadn't seen in years. He leaned back like he owned the booth, legs stretched out, one arm resting on the back of her seat like he wasn't worried about being seen. And maybe he wasn't. Maybe I was the only one in this whole situation who was still worried about consequences. I was about to step out of the car. I had the handle halfway pulled when it happened. He looked up, right at me, like he'd known the whole time I was watching. His eyes locked onto mine across the traffic, and he smiled. Not wide, not mocking, just enough to say, "There you are." I froze. Celeste didn't notice. She was still looking down, fiddling with her cup lid, saying something I'll never hear. But Kale? He didn't look away. Not for a full 5 seconds. And then, like some twisted punctuation, he winked. That was it. I was out. I started the car, tires chirping against the curb as I pulled away faster than I meant to. I didn't even know where I was going until I saw the road curve toward the river and my hands just kept steering. I needed to breathe, to think, to not explode. Why would he wink at me? Why wasn't he shocked? Or scared? Or even confused? Unless he knew who I was all along. The idea clawed into my head like a hook and refused to let go. I replayed that look 100 times before I even reached the bridge. It wasn't the look of a man caught in something shameful. It was the look of someone playing a longer game. Someone who expected to be seen eventually. And that's when the doubt started gnawing at me from the inside out. What if this wasn't just some secret affair behind my back? What if I wasn't even the target? What if I was part of something I didn't understand yet? I know how that sounds. Paranoid. Delusional, even. But if you had seen the way he looked at me, like I was a child walking into a room full of grown-up jokes, you'd feel it too. That crawling itch under your skin, the one that says you're missing something. I didn't go home. I parked in the old gravel lot behind the marina where no one ever goes in the off-season. I sat there in silence, fingers clenched around the steering wheel, trying to make sense of how my life, my ordinary, quiet, hoodie-wearing, spreadsheet-making life, had started to feel like a trap I didn't know I was in. And then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Celeste. "Hey, hope your day's okay. I might be late again. Don't wait up. Love you." No emojis. No details. Just autopilot words from a woman who used to send me voice notes with morning songs and badly sung jokes. And the worst part? I almost replied, "Okay, love you too." Almost. But then I remembered the wink. And I realized I didn't even know what game I was in anymore. But it was time I started learning the rules. I wasn't looking for anything that night. Truly, I'd already talked myself into waiting for the right moment to confront her, waiting for more proof, waiting for her to dig the hole just a little deeper. But there's something strange that happens when you've been betrayed and you know it. The world starts pushing you toward things you're not supposed to see. And maybe I was already past the point of pretending I didn't want to see them. She was in the shower when it happened. Water running, music playing faintly on her phone in the other room. I'd come home earlier than she expected, and she was humming to herself like someone with nothing to hide. That sound used to be comforting. Now it made my stomach turn. I opened the bedroom closet. Not out of suspicion, out of habit. I was going to hang up my jacket, but something fell when I moved the hangers aside. A flat plastic portfolio, navy blue, the kind you get at corporate seminars. The logo on the front said Lumia Tech, not her company. Not even a company I recognized. I almost just picked it up and stuffed it back. Almost. But then I saw my name on one of the sticky notes inside. Gideon obstacle? Double question marks. Underlined. My entire body went cold. I sat on the floor and flipped the folder open, hands shaking, heart climbing into my throat like it wanted out. Inside were printed emails, mostly redacted, with only a few lines visible. But the pieces I could read weren't random. They were about me. About our marriage. About removal of emotional dependency. About non-disclosure triggers. One note even said, Phase 3, timing dependent on full detachment. What the hell did that mean? I scanned faster, eyes darting across jargon and scribbled comments that made no sense. Q1 pivot depends on outcome at retreat, and he'll do nothing. Profile confirms pattern. My profile? I looked toward the bathroom door. Water still running. Steam leaking under the door. She had no idea I was sitting 10 feet away from the biggest red flag I'd ever seen in my life. That folder wasn't about cheating. It was about me. Studied. Labeled. Predicted. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a variable in someone else's equation. I took photos of every page. I didn't even process what I was capturing, just hit shutter again and again until my camera roll was full of proof I didn't understand. My hands were still trembling when I slid the folder back and stood up. Jacket forgotten. Breath caught halfway between shock and rage. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her like a lie, she smiled at me. Hey, you're home early, she said. And I smiled back. For the first time in weeks, I smiled without flinching. Because now, I knew something she didn't know I knew. And I was going to make sure she felt what it was like to be the one kept in the dark. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But it wasn't because I was spiraling anymore. Something had changed. The moment I saw that blue folder, saw my name reduced to a question mark in someone else's handwriting, something inside me split open. Not from pain, but from clarity. I wasn't just being lied to. I was being studied. Managed. Like a liability. Like someone they assumed would stay quiet, compliant, slow to act. And they weren't wrong, until now. The next morning, I did everything normally. I made the coffee. I asked if she needed help finding her charger. I told her good luck with her budget review meeting, which I knew now was a lie. She didn't even work in budgeting. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and walked out the door like she hadn't left behind a blueprint of manipulation in our bedroom closet. I waited 30 minutes. Just enough time for her to be gone. Then I opened her laptop. I'd never done that before. Never even thought about it. We had separate work setups, separate devices. We trusted each other. Or at least, I did. She didn't have a password on it, just a quick Face ID. So I used her backup method. I typed her birthday. Wrong. I typed Kale's name. It opened. My stomach dropped, but I kept going. Her desktop was clean. Too clean. Like it had been scrubbed or set up just for show. But in her email drafts, buried under boring subject lines like agenda, Jan MTG, and follow-up, training slides, was something that read. To Luma_Col_Alpha. I opened it. It was blank, except for one line. He's still not reacting. We may need to force proximity. I stared at it for a full minute, trying to wrap my head around what that meant. Force proximity. Were they trying to push me into some kind of situation? Why? To get me to break? To justify something? This wasn't just infidelity anymore. This was psychological warfare. Suddenly, it all made sense. The way she'd pulled away in phases, the lack of confrontation, the way she needed me at that party but didn't want me anywhere near her once we got there. It was like she wanted me to see something. Or someone. Like Kale. And Kale. Kale knew who I was the second he saw me. That wink wasn't just arrogance. It was a signal. I wasn't the third wheel in this anymore. I was the experiment. But here's the thing about being the test subject. Once you realize you're inside the maze, you can choose where to go. And that morning, I made a choice. I backed out of her email, closed everything, left no trace. Then I took my laptop and opened an incognito window. I searched Lumia Tech plus Kale. What I found made my blood run cold. Not a company profile, not a LinkedIn, but a legal case, sealed, classified under a previous name, Kale Thorne. In 2018, he had been part of a behavioral architecture study tied to a think tank that got defunded after allegations of covert psychological manipulation trials on couples. Partners signed NDA-based agreements. Most didn't even know they were test subjects. The program was eventually shut down, scrubbed from the news. But not completely. Someone archived the PDFs. I stared at his photo. It was him. The same smile. The same eyes. And now, he was back, working with my wife. My wife who was sending him updates. My wife who once whispered his name in her sleep. I didn't know what they were planning, but I was done being their pawn. If they wanted a reaction, they were about to get one. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I didn't expose anything right away. That's what they expected me to do, to lose control, to act erratic, to prove their predictions right. I saw it written between every line of that blue folder. Pattern of withdrawal. Avoidant emotional processing. Predictable delay in escalation. They thought I'd freeze. Or explode. They never considered I might evolve. So I did something they wouldn't see coming. I started preparing my exit. It wasn't as dramatic as disappearing in the night or emptying our joint accounts. It was smarter than that. Subtle. I met with a lawyer under a different name. I moved my freelance contracts to a new business entity. I stopped sharing my location. I encrypted my backups. I changed my phone passcode. I said nothing. And for 2 weeks, I played the role. I kissed her forehead in the mornings. I asked how her fake meetings went. I let her think I was retreating, folding into the gray version of myself they'd mapped out. Meanwhile, I was documenting, gathering, saving, watching every glance she sent her phone when it buzzed, every whisper she took in the hallway thinking I was in the shower. I collected enough to burn it all down. But I didn't burn anything, because I didn't need revenge. I just needed freedom. The night I left, I waited until she was gone. Another fake networking event, I assume. I packed lightly. I didn't need much. Just my laptop, documents, and the quiet peace of knowing I was finally done pretending to be part of something that didn't exist anymore. I left the folder on the kitchen counter. Not a copy. The original. Along with a note that read, "I'm not your variable. I'm not your control group. I'm just done. Don't contact me again." And I walked out. No drama. No begging. No confrontation. Just silence. And in that silence, I finally felt whole again. I stayed with my brother for a few weeks. Took time off. Read actual books, not blogs, not threads, not conspiracies. Just real words written by people who still believed in something. I hiked. I cooked. I laughed. Not performatively, not sarcastically, but freely, like my body had finally remembered how. My phone stayed quiet. No, please come back this time. No, we can fix this. Just emptiness on her end. Eventually, I moved to a new city. Nothing fancy, just a coastal town where no one knows who I was when I let people treat me like an afterthought. I work less now. I sleep more. And last month, I met someone. No games. No secrets. No hidden folders. She doesn't flinch when I ask questions. She doesn't need me to be anyone but myself. And that's the real ending here. I didn't destroy anyone. I didn't collapse. I didn't even get even. I just got out. And that was more powerful than anything they expected.